Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I'm Darshan Usman. Here are some stories making rounds beyond the continent. We begin the news in the United States, where the presidential debate, which held in Atlanta between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump on Thursday, has been touted to be one of the most consequential in modern American history. Political observers say the debate presents significant stakes for President Biden and could impact the remaining months of his administration, as well as the early maneuvering of the 2024 presidential race. News Central's Nii Omoni takes a look at the highlights of the debate.
President Biden spent the week leading up to the first presidential debate of 2024 at Camp David, the official presidential retreat in Maryland, where his aides helped prepare him through mock debate sessions. Former President Donald Trump, meanwhile, largely continued his normal campaign schedules of rallies. President Biden and former President Trump met in their first debate of the 2024 United States presidential election campaign. Both candidates sought to gain an advantage in what has so far been a very competitive campaign. The debate provided both an opportunity to outline their competing visions for the country's future.
The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do.
By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country.
Despite delivering the opening barrage in Thursday's event, Biden struggled to articulate his point at several moments. Former President Donald Trump seized several chances to steer the conversation towards perceived weaknesses in President Biden's record.
Would you block abortion medication?
And I will not block it.
Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade. You're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce-back jobs, a bounce-back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Former President Trump also avoided committing to a peaceful transfer of power should he lose the November 5th general election.
But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody, and I'll tell you something, I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself.
While some have speculated about alternative Democratic candidates, party leadership rallied behind President Biden following the debate. They reiterated warnings about the former President Donald Trump posing a threat to American democratic norms and institutions. The debate marked the first of two scheduled presidential debates this election cycle. Political observers watch closely for signs that President Biden can strengthen his case to voters as former President Trump continues campaigning aggressively despite ongoing legal challenges. In Lagos for News Central, Nii Omoni.
In the meantime, U.S. politicians have commented on the U.S. presidential debate, which carried huge stakes for both Joe Biden and Donald Trump as they battle for any advantage in their tight race for the White House.
And nowadays, because he is under such a vast criminal cloud, he is obsessed with himself. He's not simply running for the White House, he's running from the jailhouse.
But do you
That's his
think
problem.
But if somebody at home is asking themselves, who's going to make me proud of being an American again? That's where Trump won this hands down. He mopped the floor. I thought it was a great outcome.
Now joining us on the news to share his thought is Bolu Michael-Biyi, an international analyst. Hello, Bolu. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good
All right,
evening.
now let's begin with the elephant in the room. That's the significance, of President Biden's struggles with articulation, especially during the debate. What impact do you think this might have on voter perception, of his competence and leadership?
A political debate of any kind, especially a presidential debate, is an opportunity, for the candidate to have the focus of the country on them, and they now decide what they want to use that platform or that opportunity for. And I think Trump capitalized on that greatly. And, he seemed pretty prepared, but President Joe Biden, he didn't really articulate himself. He didn't really show his mettle. And I think it might affect voters' perception of his competence and ability, especially his physical stamina to be able to continue the job. If he's about 82 right now and way past the retirement age, and if he gets a second term, he'll be the around 86. He's already the oldest president in the U.S. history. So, it was said that he had a cold and all. But what about the times when he didn't have a cold? He still stumbled. So I think he didn't make a good impression to swing voters.
All right, now during the debate, Trump actually focused on immigration and the economy during this debate. And in that, he actually leveraged Biden's perceived weaknesses. How effective would you say that strategy was? And how do you think it might or would influence undecided voters?
Yeah, and in the book How to Win Election, Cicero said that they'll tell the people what they want to hear, and if you don't, they'll punish you for it. I think Trump is aware of that fact, and he capitalized on that. He really emphasized on immigration and also the economy, which are the two factors that pollsters, that internal campaign groups, they conduct polls to feel the pulse of the people, to know the issues they should focus on. And the American people have, they seem to be interested in economy and immigration, and he focused on that greatly. And unfortunately, Biden kind of stumbled along the line by saying that, okay, I wouldn't say that terrorists didn't enter the country. I mean that was he shouldn't have said that, I think, and Trump really capitalized on that, and I think it might work in his favor in terms of people who are still undecided about who they should choose between the two candidates.
All right, now Trump's reluctance to commit to accepting election results unless they're fair and free, echoes his stance from previous elections. Now, how do you think this stance would affect voter trust in the electoral process?
I personally don't see anything wrong in what Trump said, because the question is, should the people in a nation accept a free and an election that is not free and fair? That's the question. Should the people in the country accept an election that is not fair? So why should a candidate accept an election that is not free and fair? So he has made his point clear. Should the election be free and fair, I'll be happy to accept it. And I think it's what most politicians would say. We shouldn't just accept an election simply because the Electoral Commission has announced. I don't think any country whatsoever or any candidate should accept the result of an election that is not free and fair. So I think most viewers would not be surprised by his response. He has always made that clear, and I believe that many people would align with such sentiments as well.
All right, now most stakeholders, Bolu, seem to think that for Trump to actually contest, he's trying to run away from jail. Now, with him facing criminal indictments, related to attempts to subvert election results, how do you think, this legal context would influence public opinion and the dynamics of the 2024 presidential race?
First, there's this principle of the immunity whereby a president cannot really be punished, for acts that they did in office while in office, I think a lot of people are having that sympathy towards Trump now, because they probably believe that it's politically motivated, all the legal battles and all, and Trump so far has been able to surmount them, which may make him have that perception of a strong leader. So he might actually get sympathy votes, and he might actually come across the voter as a strong person. Also, he has faced worse issues. When he was running for the first time, they said he groped women. A lot of things went around about him, and he was still able to defeat Hillary Clinton. I don't think people will care much about the legal battle that he's facing right now, because the issues that are important to the American people is the economy rather, and immigration, not his legal cases. I don't think it would affect the voters, negatively, against Trump that much.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Bolu, for your analysis on this. We appreciate you for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Away from that, Iowa's highest court on Friday upheld a law saying the state can enforce a ban on most abortions after about 6 weeks of pregnancy. The law bans abortions after early signs of cardiac activity can be detected in a fetus or embryo, but makes exceptions for cases of rape, incest, fetal abnormalities, and when the mother's life is in danger. The decision made on Friday reverses a temporary block of the law, which was initially passed by the state legislature in July 2023. The Iowa Supreme Court rejected the lawsuit by Planned Parenthood in a 4-3 ruling, which held that the law does not violate citizens' fundamental rights under the state constitution. Bolivian authorities have arrested 21 people, including the 3 former top commanders of the armed forces, over the failed coup against President Luis Arce. On Friday, Minister of Interior Eduardo del Castillo, at a press conference, said as of Thursday, 17th, 17 active and retired military personnel had been detained, but in the last few hours, 4 new arrests were reported. During the military rebellion, 14 civilians were injured with pellets fired by soldiers when they entered the square where the presidential palace is located. Authorities are also continuing their investigations and operations to clarify the coup attempt against Arce, who has been in power since late 2020.
Desde el inicio hemos manifestado que Juan José Zúñiga no ha actuado solo. Todas estas personas, estas 21 personas, no han trabajado de manera unilateral. Hasta este momento hay un total de 21 personas aprehendidas dentro del caso denominado golpe de Estado fallido. Está en calidad de aprehendido el general Segarra, el excomandante de la Fuerza Aérea, por disposiciones del Ministerio Público.
Let's go on a short break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Let's head to Europe, where the head of Russia's Investigative Committee, a powerful judicial body, says he is in favor of bringing back the death penalty. Russia stopped carrying out capital punishment in 1996 as a prerequisite for joining the Council of Europe, an organization it was expelled from in 2022 after launching its offensive in Ukraine.
Некоторые грамотные, высококвалифицированные юристы, что надо менять Конституцию, что надо проводить референдум, а я полагаю, надо просто указом президента отменить мораторий.
European leaders reached an agreement to grant Ursula von der Leyen a second term as president of the European Commission as part of a distribution of key EU positions. The German conservative leader still needs to be confirmed in a vote by the European Parliament, as does the Estonian Liberal Prime Minister Kaja Kallas, who has been proposed as the EU's High Representative for Foreign Affairs. In the same vein, the EU heads of state and government have appointed the Portuguese socialist Antonio Costa as president of the European Council. This summit also marks the end of Belgium's rotating presidency, which will be handed over to Hungary and Viktor Orban.
J'ai le plaisir de vous informer des décisions qui ont été prises concernant les nominations pour le prochain cycle institutionnel. Antonio Costa a été élu président du Conseil européen. Ursula von der Leyen a été proposée par les chefs d'État de gouvernement pour assumer la présidence de la Commission pour le prochain cycle institutionnel. Et Kaja Kallas a été proposée pour devenir haut représentant. Ça veut donc dire que le Conseil européen a assumé pleinement sa responsabilité. On avait des
Yes, I would plain and simply like to express my gratitude to the leaders who endorsed my nomination for a second mandate as President of the European Commission. Look, I will work with the whole Parliament and with the members of the European Parliament. For me, it's very important, you know, the principles that we work with those who are pro-European, pro-Ukraine, and pro-rule of law. And I have to convince.
In the Middle East, polls in Iran opened on Friday for a presidential election following the death of ultra-conservative President Ibrahim Raisi in a helicopter crash last month. Around 61 million Iranians are eligible to vote in the polls, where reformist Masoud Pezeshkian hopes for a breakthrough win against a divided conservative camp. Also left in contention is cleric Mustafa Pourmohammadi after two ultra-conservatives dropped out: Tehran Major Alireza Zaghani and Raisi's former vice president Amir Hossein Ghazizadeh Hashemi. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei cast his ballot shortly after the polls opened and urged Iranians to vote.
مال ایرانیم، ایرانی خودش تصمیم میگیره نسبت به مسائل مملکتش. درسته یه مقدار کم خواستگاری گرونی است، اما اینکه به هر حال امید داریم که انشالله با آمدن رئیس جمهور جدید این معضل برطرف بشه.
الحمدلله رب العالمین شلوغ از جانباز گرفته، از مادر شهید گرفته، از پیر و جوان.
The World Health Organization on Friday says it supports medical evacuation of critically ill children from Gaza. Relatives wave goodbye as critically ill children board buses outside the Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Yunis before being evacuated from the war-ravaged Gaza Strip into Egypt through the Karim Shalom crossing. This is the first evacuation from Gaza since the Rafah border crossing was closed in early May, when Israel forces took over the Palestinian side of the terminal. Still in the Middle East, Israeli army footage of what they say are operations in Nahal Brigade in the Rafah area. Now, Israel's military on Friday said it was conducting raids backed by airstrikes in northern Gaza, killing dozens of militants in an area where it had declared the command structure of Hamas dismantled months ago. The operation in Shujaiya on the outskirts of Gaza City resulted in multiple casualties, witnesses and doctors stated on Thursday. When it began, experts predict a potentially extended next phase. The military said in its first details of the operation that intelligence had indicated the presence of terrorists and terrorist infrastructure in the area of Shujaiya. In Asia, the roof of a terminal building at New Delhi's International Airport partially collapsed in heavy rains early Friday, killing one person months after a refurbishment project was inaugurated. Due to heavy rain since early Friday morning, a portion of the canopy collapsed around 5 a.m. 8 people have been injured, 1 person is dead. The rescue operations are working to provide all necessary assistance and medical aid to those affected. Images posted online showed vehicles crushed under giant steel girders at the departure forecourt of the airport's Terminal 1, one of several projects launched by Modi in March ahead of the country's general election by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Chinese President Xi Jinping said Friday that the ruling Communist Party was planning and implementing major reforms ahead of a closely watched political conclave that is expected to put economic recovery high on the agenda. Chinese policymakers have struggled to reignite growth since the end of strict pandemic health curbs in late 2022. The world's second largest economy is beset by a debt crisis in the property sector, persistently low consumption, and high youth unemployment. On Friday, Xi announced that the postponed third plenum, a gathering traditionally scrutinized for clues of economic policy direction, will take place in Beijing in mid-July.
中国开放的大门只会越开越大，永远不会关上。我们正在谋划和实施进一步全面深化改革的重大措施，继续扩大制度型开放，形成更加市场化、法治化、国际化的营商环境，搞小院儿、高墙、脱钩断链，是逆历史潮流而动，只会损害
Finally, Mongolians are set to vote in parliamentary elections on Friday, with the ruling party widely anticipated to win despite growing popular dissatisfaction with the country's economic situation. Polls opened at 7 a.m. local time and will close at 10 p.m. with preliminary results expected later in the night. Analysts expect the ruling Mongolian People's Party, led by Prime Minister Oyun Erdin, to retain the majority. They attribute much of the party's success to a boom in coal mining over the last decade, which spurred double-digit growth and substantially improved living standards, as well as a robust party machine and a weak, fragmented opposition. However, there is tremendous public resentment over the endemic corruption, expensive living, and limited chances for the youth, who form about 2/3 of the population, as major issues.
Ихийг хийж бүтээх сэтгэлгээтэй тийм хүнийг сонгохыг хүсэж байна. Монгол Улсын их хурлын 13 дугаар тойрогт 2 хүн сонгох ёстой байсан. Энээс нэгэн эмэгтэй хүн, нэгэн эрэгтэй хүн. Яагаад вэ гэвэл мэдлэг боловсролынх нь хувьд, арга ирээ авч явж байгаа ур чадварынх нь хувьд, одоо гишүүнийхэн хувьд тийм ээ, одоо юу гэдэг улс төрч хүнийх нь хувьд гэдэг утгаар нь сонголтоо хийсэн.
Тэгэл зам тэгэл одоо нэг залуу хүмүүсийг дэмжсэн тийм нэг аж үйлдвэр те оршоо тийм нэг ажил ерөн залуучуудад дэмжсэн тийм.
And that's all on Beyond the Continent. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do you follow us on social media? We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.